Greetings. I'm Rick Wade, Senior Vice President of Strategic Alliances and Outreach at the United States Chamber of Commerce. We pause to celebrate and recognize the 60th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act of 1963, arguably one of the most critical pieces of legislation in our history that has helped to reduce gender-based discrimination in America's workforce. There were nearly 25 million women in our workforce by 1960, just before the act was passed. At that time, women were earning only about 59 cents to every dollar that a man earned. Today, there are about 75 million women in our country's workforce. And in 2021, full-time working women who work year-round earned an average of about 84 cents to every dollar that a man earned. No doubt we made progress. At its inception, President Kennedy was absolutely correct in acknowledging the act as a significant step forward, but that much remains to be done to achieve full equality of economic opportunity. And we're doing our part here at the United States Chamber, helping to reach that goal. Back in July of 2020, we launched the Equality of Opportunity Initiative to develop real sustainable solutions to help close opportunity gaps in areas like education, employment, and entrepreneurship and more. Driven by data, informed by conversations with leaders across both the public and private sectors, we are advancing solutions through private sector initiatives and policy advocacy at the federal, state, and even local levels. The Chamber also launched the Next Gen Business Partnership in 2018 to work with historically Black colleges and universities and other minority-serving institutions to develop the next generation of business leaders, exposing students to career opportunities, promoting entrepreneurship, and encouraging knowledge sharing among academics and industry. We're proud that our next-gen scholars are now working in major corporations. Some are even business owners and helping to create generational wealth. Others have even continued their higher education at schools like Harvard University Law School and even participated in the prestigious Fulbright program. I'm convinced that through a collective effort, that we can continue to close the pay gap and address other inequalities across our nation. Together we can, and together we must, turn dialogue into real action, reclaim and reaffirm the promise of equal opportunity for all, and work to ensure that every person has a fair chance to pursue their own American dream. But in the meantime, let me say happy 60th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act of 1963.
Can you please talk about the significance of the 60th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act of 1963 and how local policymakers can work together to help improve generational wealth in our country?
The 60th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act is critical because what we see even 60 years later, there is still not pay equity. Women right now are paid at 84% of what men are paid, and it's even a greater gap for women of color. One of the things that we can do, or some of the things that we can do as local leaders, is to ensure that there are pay equity and transparency studies in our communities, that we are hiring the right hiring managers and commissioners and people who make hiring decisions to ensure that pay scales are equal. Also, when looking at government work, we want to make sure that our civil service pay scales are equal, that the job qualifications and education and pay scales are equitable and in line. And most importantly, we just have to ensure that we're being fair. We can't look at age and education and use those as excuses. We have to make sure that we are intentional and strategic when it comes around to equal pay for equal work.
President Artis, please explain to me the significance of the 60th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act of 1963 and how minority-serving institutions can help improve generational wealth in our country.
As it relates to the anniversary of the Equal Pay Act, I would simply say it affords us an opportunity to, one, reflect on how far we've come, We certainly have begun to close the gap in terms of pay equity for women in this country, opportunity for women in this country, and that extends really beyond our gender norms and more of a gender fluid society where we recognize and appreciate each person for their unique contributions, equal pay for equal work, despite those distinctions. And so we do, on an anniversary, take an opportunity to stop and take stock, to review, to reflect, and then to recommit as we move forward to thinking about ways that we can increase equity in this country. How is that significant in particular to a minority serving institution? Education is the great equal. Without education, men and women do not have the opportunity to join the workforce at a high. As an HBCU president, it is incredibly important to me to ensure that my students have the opportunity to go into the workforce well prepared, to earn a higher wage, to transform the conditions under which many of them have grown up, and to create intergenerational wealth transfer because they may be the first in their families to attend college and to join the workforce as a productive, contributing member of society.
So tell me about the significance of the 60th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act of 1963, and how can the United States better align itself with Sustainable Development Goal number 8, decent work and economic growth?
This act is extremely significant. It requires employers to pay men and women equal pay. And that's looking at if they have the same position, they should get equal pay. And it also includes benefits should be equal, such as things like vacation. Yet 60 years later, right? I'm not sure this is a true celebration because 60 years later, women are being paid only 84 cents on the dollar. And what is so important about this is that when the UN and the 193 member states came together in 2015 to develop the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the US was very active in putting the goals together. They were leaders. And I am sure that's why we had SDG 8 looking at economic development, fair wage, because it's so important to the US. And we know that we as a country need to do more when it comes to equal pay. But this is also an issue around the world, which is why I'm very pleased that equal pay was included in SDG number 8 within the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
I'm John A.C. Taylor Jr., President and CEO of SHRM. Happy 60th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act of 1963. SHRM celebrates the anniversary of this landmark legislation, which came following a near century-long push for gender-based equal pay in our country. Over the past 75 years, SHRM has worked to positively impact the world by creating better workplaces. We have impacted policy and legislation that protects the rights of workers and improves workplaces, including the Equal Pay Act of 1963, championing policies that will help organizations and people thrive. As human resource professionals, we recognize the responsibility to help enforce fair treatment in the American workforce, and we celebrate the efforts of employers and lawmakers who help ensure that fair treatment. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 became a catalyst for other civil rights laws in the future years. Women on average still earn about 83% of what men earn in this country. SHRM hopes to continue to see progress on this issue. While we celebrate the advances made, we are aware of the strides we must continue to make as we work to create better workplaces. Once again, happy 60th anniversary.
Let's work together to improve generational wealth.
Let's work together to improve generational wealth.
Let's work together to improve generational wealth.